Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could all join us today. Everybody down in the States getting ready for a long weekend. Some guys are already home. I see Kelly Patterson's home in Roseburg, Oregon. Beautiful part of the country. Hello, Josh Bulldog. Thank you for joining us, sir. And Kelly Patterson, I mentioned. Tim Field is here from Denver, another beautiful part of the country. Tim Field, how are you doing? Gary Dornbush is here from Columbus. Glad to see you, Gary. AJ's here from Des Moines, Iowa. Who else has joined us here? Always glad to see you guys piling in. Paul Hudson's here from Illinois. Fred Besmer's here. Fred's all over the country all the time, and he's in Joliet, Illinois today. SoCal Sandman's here. Got a question for you later, SoCal. Glad you could join us. How are you doing? Grilled Mortal is here. Always enjoy his participation. Always. Wolfman's here. Ross is here from Texas. Hey, Ross, thanks for joining us. CS Mal 1992 is here, starting with Wilson Logistics next Tuesday. Kyle's here. Kyle's going to be in Oregon as well for the long weekend. I loved Oregon. Beautiful state. Wayne Blue's here from Ohio. So I guess we can get started. First off, Josh, I wanted to answer your question real quick. It's hard to say, Josh, honestly, which is the better motor. I just thought it was funny that, that Cummins had the recall. That's why I pointed it out last week.
Footy Wizard, we saw your $10 donation before the stream. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Currently in school for diesel mechanics in Alberta. I have the opportunity to get my CDL for free. I love trucks and do want to go and get my OTR at some point. The question is trucking or mechanics a better career? Thank you very much for the 10 beans.
That is a really good question. So let me answer it by saying this. I would go ahead and get the CDL, especially if you can get it for free. And then I would start working as a mechanic, because both truck mechanics and truck drivers have good careers. But I've noticed with my friends that were truck mechanics that when they get on up into their 40s, their bodies start to give out a little from all the straining in weird positions and kneeling on concrete and working on the trucks and wrenching on them. I've noticed that in their 40s, a lot of them need a break from wrenching and then go on to the driving. And I think that's the smart way to do it. If it were me, that's how I do it. And it's great to have a truck driver with a mechanic's experience and background. You can't get a better combination for that. So that's how I'd go about that anyway. They're both good careers. I'd start out being a mechanic, be home every night, enjoy that life, and then when you get a little older and your body needs a rest, go trucking. That's the way I'd do it anyway. Good question. Good question. I also saw Kelly Patterson cooking Texas-style pulled pork, and I'm not going to read any more because I'm getting hungry just thinking about that. I love Texas pulled pork. Love it. So you guys all doing good today? SoCal Sandman, I wanted to ask you, because I know you are a long-time driver. Do you have a favorite mechanic, the guy that you like to see working on your truck when you need something done? Do you have a go-to guy? Because most long-time owner-operators and independents do have a guy like that. I was talking to a friend of mine here this morning, actually, about the problems now that we're having up here with that. And I just wondered if you had a go-to guy that you went to when you could. And I'll look for that answer later. But what our problem was is the shops up here want to charge top limit, and it's $150 an hour up here. And then the shop will try to assign an apprentice onto your truck and still expect you to pay top dollar. And in the meanwhile, You don't want the apprentice learning on your truck. You don't mind them for little stuff like brake adjustments and stuff you can check later to make sure it's okay, but you sure don't want them doing a top end set or something like that. So I'd be curious to know what your feelings are on that. Lots of stuff going on in the industry too today. There was a big reveal from an interview from the COO of Plus Autonomous Trucking. So I'm just dying to read part of that to you. Igor Malman's here from Brazil. Always glad to see you, Igor. That's a jump. Always glad you can join us. Dustin's here. Hey, everybody. Edward's here. Hey, Edward. SoCal. Oh, so I got SoCal Sandman's reply on the mechanic, and then it's right at Forward Air's shop. So that's nice, and that's kind of handy. Howdy from Toronto, Steve Curtis. Howdy, Steve. Brennan's here from Pennsylvania. Captain Nice Guy, always glad to see you, sir. Good afternoon, gang. Nice weather here. Devion's here. C.S. Mal's here, 1992 from Eastern Tennessee. Ross is here from Texas. Kevin's here. I just want to say thank you for everything that you do. I just got my authority, and the information that you provide is very valuable. Thanks. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for saying so. We appreciate you joining us here today. Connexo, I'm sure I murdered that, but want to become a truck driver in North America. I'm a one-eyed man. Yes, I have a buddy with a glass eye, and he was able to get his license, so I know that's entirely possible up here. Good question. Dill from Belleville, Ontario is joining us, and Jermaine from Atlanta. Welcome, gentlemen. Thunderstorm 87. What's my opinion on the truck insurance hike? There's an interesting question. My understanding is that this whole movement through Congress has been prompted by a statesman or a congressman that is actually like a third generation insurance salesman type. And the one article I read on him called them a family of ambulance chasers, basically. But of course, they're promoting an insurance hike just because they'll make more money in the deal. I'm against it myself. Trucking is getting to the point where it's getting so expensive that only the mega carriers can survive the costs. And as a little guy, I'm against an insurance hike. And I think part of the problem stems from the fact that they allow the courts to make these huge decisions in truck accidents. I think there should be a ceiling on that. But no, I'm not in favor of this huge insurance boost in the trucking industry. And their statistics show that 96% or 94% of the accidents reviewed in court, the decision isn't nuclear. So there's no need for that kind of an insurance hike. And I think the courts need to be tamed down on those nuclear decisions. That's my take on it anyway. That's my opinion. Josh Bulldog says, is the Peterbilt and Kenworth the only trucks offering manual transmissions? You know, Josh, I think they all offer manuals. I read here just yesterday that both Peterbilt and Kenworth now are saying that 90% of their sales are automatic trucks now, which is pretty interesting to note. Now, that could be because 90% of their sales now are going to large carriers with new drivers. But still, it's an interesting statistic. But and there'll always be standard transmissions for certain applications, like heavy haul guys are never going to want an automatic, and old school guys are never going to want an automatic. But it certainly seems that the industry largely is moving towards automatic transmissions. And, they are more expensive, but there are fuel savings associated with these automatic transmissions now. So you can certainly see the big carriers' point for wanting the automatics, that and the fact that it's a lot easier to put a new driver in an automatic truck than one with a standard transmission. It cuts their driver training time in half, I imagine.
Just a quick comment from AJ in the chat. I'm legally blind in my right eye, and I got my CDL with no trouble.
Oh, good. Yep. No, absolutely go ahead and get your license. Join us. Be glad to have you. Where was I? But anyway, the automatic transmissions, that's what I was going on about. But something else I read on the negative side of that, and I hadn't even thought of that earlier, is that this old guy quoted, he was leery of the automatic transmissions because it gave new drivers more of a chance to play with their phones and less focus on the truck driving and the shifting gears. And I thought, geez, I hadn't thought of that, but he had a point there. Kind of scary. There's Daniel Meredith. Haven't seen you. Daniel, glad you could join us. If I could, I would still love to operate a train over a semi. I assume you mean like pulling two trailers, or do you mean like a locomotive train, Daniel? But pulling B trains, I really enjoyed that, if you're talking about that kind of a train. Richard Sanchez, on my third month of trucking, I'm learning a lot from your channel. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. That's kind of part of what we try to do here is help out the new guys. Wolfman 1662 Crimson. I think that you would depend on your hours and whether you would be able to pick up and deliver on time. Are the automatic trucks more effective than manuals? And if not, why are they the most trucks going automatic? That's from Crimson G. Because they're a lot easier. There are a lot of new drivers getting into the industry. The carriers are recognizing this, and they want to make it as easy as possible for these new guys to be able to drive these big trucks. And as the one carrier pointed out to me, they're saving fuel, considerable fuel, with the automatic transmissions. So that in itself is a good reason to go automatics. You should touch on how unsafe it is to drive a rig in sandals and having a leg up on the board. Marco, you're right, but God, if I have to explain that, I'm scared to who I'd have to explain it to. Certainly, common sense would dictate that you don't want to wear sandals or flip-flops, because in a lot of trucks they'll get caught underneath the pedals and jammed, or they could flip off when you're trying to work the clutch or hit the brake or something. They're just not secure footwear. They're not safe on a loading dock. It's just not the kind of stuff you want to wear in your feet when you're at work, unless you're a lifeguard. And truck driving is not that, so it's just not smart. It's too easy to get hurt, too easy to make a mistake with them on. That's my take. And as far as having your foot up on the dash, you shouldn't even. Yeah. That almost doesn't deserve an answer. That's such a stupid move if someone's doing that. But God, no, you got to have both feet ready to hit the clutch and the brake, or 2 feet on the brake if you need to. You've got to have your feet. Your feet are helping you control the truck. You don't want to get it tangled trying to get it off the dashboard. Yeah, SoCal says flip-flop should be illegal in trucking. I agree, frankly. I agree. I drive in bare feet before I drive. I wouldn't drive in flip-flops. I just wouldn't. Daniel Meredith was talking about the railroad train, just to see the power of the engine. That would be something to try, eh? Especially through the mountains and stuff. Those things even can spin out. I know I've seen them spin out in the Rockies. You wouldn't think that could happen to a train, but it can. Darren Long, We all know what a big issue parking is. The question is, what is the solution? Darren, good question. The solution is that the government just has to allocate more real estate available for parking, and the government has to fund that. They can't expect the truck stops to just contribute parking lots that cost hundreds of thousands to pave and set up and light. They can't expect truck stops to contribute all of that for free. They can't expect them to suck that up. It's a safety issue. The government should be pitching in to put in parking. And I'm not talking about these 30 truck rest areas. I'm talking about massive, expansive, big safe parking lots with washrooms, that type of thing. Really, that's a government responsibility, I think. AJ says, I'm thankful for the opportunity to learn to drive a truck in a manual transmission, but I'm looking forward to my company switching to automatic trucks, especially for driving in traffic. And I can see where an automatic would be handier and nicer in heavy traffic. But I do think it's a skill set to have, to learn, to know how to drive a manual transmission. I think that's real trucking, and I think everybody that is really into this job should take the time to learn when they get the chance, just so they know how to do it. Certainly look better on your resume. What would your opinion going from food services to OTR? That's from Raymond. Boy, that'll be a switch. You'll notice a lot of long hours, and maybe a cut in pay. It's sad to say. Some of those food service gigs pay pretty well because it's all by the hour. So it'd be an interesting jump, Raymond. But if you want to see the world, the OTR would be the way to do it. Huh. Interesting switch. I'd think long and hard about that. Scranton Shaker, what happened to leather on your feet, jeans, and a button-up shirt, and the drivers wonder why there's no respect? Yeah, I hear you. If the driver looks like he's coming from the sandbox, it's kind of hard to respect him, isn't it? I'm with you there. And you portray that image when you walk into a customer or a truck stop or something like that, or even into the dispatch office. You don't want to look like a joke. Yeah, Laverne says we need more parking. We desperately need more parking. And the government should quit relying on everyone else to provide it. They should take our tax dollars, and we pay a ton, and put it towards safe parking for us. Well-lit safe parking with facilities right across the country. And I know real estate's expensive in the Eastern Seaboard. I don't care. Truck drivers need to sleep out there too. Tim Field, did you see the picture I sent you on Instagram of the stretched triple axle 20-foot container chassis I hauled? Tim, I haven't seen that yet, but I noticed you're doing like heavy haul out of the Denver area, and that'd be a challenging job right in itself, especially if you're doing a lot of mountain running. If you're running west of Denver, so you're obviously no greenhorn. But no, I'll have to check and look for that picture. I want to see it, and it's intermodal stuff, Tim? But no, I'll check. I haven't seen it yet, but I will find it. Thank you for sending it. Hey, Scott's here. Where did he go? Scott Kuhn. Push in parking button to get this show on the road.
Captain Nice Guy coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you very much for that. Good to see you in the chat as usual this afternoon. I say if you dress professionally, you'll get treated professionally. Thank you for the 20 beans, Captain Nice Guy.
And Captain Nice Guy, I would agree with that. And I think, truck drivers and respect has been an issue in the last number of years. And I think if you dress well, and it demands a certain amount of respect right there. And I don't think that truck drivers should ever have to put up with any guff from shippers or receivers or customers. You treat them with respect, expect to be treated the same way in return. I think it's a two-way street. But I think if they're gonna, if they're not gonna give you the respect you deserve, I'm the kind of guy that would just swing the truck around and leave. I don't ever put up with that kind of crap. You don't deserve it. But dress as a professional, certainly part of it. I knew a couple of guys back in the day that ran bed bugs that literally dressed in suits and ties to go in and greet a customer. Oh, Tim Field, I got the picture in front of me here now. Kathy's found it. That's quite the setup. Wow, that's cool. What kind of weight can you gross with a setup like that there? Up here, that setup would be allowed 130,000 pounds. I'm curious to know what you can scale down there with it. Wolfman 1662 says he's had to do a few 10-hour breaks on the side of the road. Isn't that crap? That's ridiculous. I'd be the type to run over my hours just to find a safe place to park before I do that, I think. I know you get in trouble for it, but they can't always get what they want, right? You've got to take care of yourself first. Some of these stupid rules just make no sense at all.
Rastamar coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you very much for that. What's the best way to get a new truck with a pre-ELD engine, as I load on farms out of service a lot and can't risk a breakdown?
Good question, Rastamar. Hey, man, how are you? How are you? Glad you joined us here. That's a really good question. In Canada, you're still allowed to use a glider kit. The problem is finding one. And the same with the pre-emission engine. The factories in the States where we get all our trucks from have quit marketing glider kits on the demand of the EPA. So the tough part is to find the glider kit. Now, you'd almost be better to find an older truck, clean it right up, and then use its pre-emission engine. Like a truck that's not too old, and then dump a pre-emission engine into it, because you just can't get a glider anymore. It's a goofy rule, but Captain Nice Guy, bed bugs, yeah, moving guys, moving van guys, yeah, bed bug haulers. Have you not heard that one? Yeah, Kyle says got to buy a used glider if you can find one. I imagine they're rare as hen's teeth anymore. SoCal Sandman, shave, shower, dress appropriately. Yep, I agree. I agree. They'll see you walking in and they'll know you're not some fool off the beach. Kyle says buy like an 04 379. I've got one of those. I'm going for a ride in it tomorrow, in fact. Hey Dave, how are the Peterbilt 389 sales doing since the digital dash? Josh, good question. It's interesting that I follow a couple of the Pete sales guys on YouTube, and they're all making a point of saying, hey, this is one of the last old style dash trucks that you'll be able to get, and they're really pushing them because they know that the days are numbered. So they're hot sellers now, the last of the 389 old style dash. Daniel says, I have only driven a 10 and a 13 speed. How similar is the 13 speed from the 15 or the 18? It's virtually identical to the 18 speed. Different from the 15 speed in the pattern usually, depending on which 15 it is. But if you can drive a 13, you can drive an 18. It's just one more set of gears you can split on an 18. But yeah, Daniel, don't sweat it. If you can do the 13, you can do the 18. You don't even need all those gears. I seldom go through all the gears on mine. Very seldom, unless I was loaded really, really heavy in the mountains or something like that. And that's the nice thing, too, about having a big motor with a lot of torque. You don't need to use all the gears. Thinking about buying my own truck. What would you recommend doing as far as work for the best pay for wanting to stay local? Good question, Brennan. Depending on where you're living, I know a couple of guys that are getting paid by the hour for pulling containers out of the ports, out of the seaports. And those guys are making really good money. Their trucks aren't taking a lot of abuse. They're not having to travel very far. And if you're near, the east or the west coast, I'd be having a close look at something like that. Cliff says gliders are still around. They're asking more for them than when they were new. Cliff, yeah, I can bet that's right. And people are still buying them, says Kyle. I can bet that's right as well. Josh Bulldog, hey Dave, do new CDL drivers still have automatic restrictions on their license? I think that depends on where they are when they get their license. I know some states do. I know some provinces do. Ontario, where I live, as far as I know, does not have a restriction on that. But I think it depends on where your license is generated from. I was once told by an office worker at my company that I couldn't have been one of their drivers. I was dressed too nice. Ross, that's not a bad problem to have, is it? Dustin says, what's a good company to get with? Dustin, depends on where you live and where you want to go, but up here we like GP Transco. We're a big fan of them. I'd recommend them to anybody. We're expecting a visit from them tomorrow. I'm pretty excited about that. We're hoping that they're going to show up here with one of their new 2022 Cascadias. I am excited to see that truck and that setup. I hope it makes it through customs. Tim Field says he has his auto restriction on a California license. So, Steve Curtis, pros and cons of going the owner-operator route. God, Steve, when you go owner-operator, it's almost like taking on two jobs because you've got the job of driving the truck through the week, and on the weekend you've got the job of the paperwork and the maintenance and a whole lot of stuff associated with it. And it's getting harder and harder to keep a new truck running properly because of the emissions requirements now. So your maintenance bills are that much higher. If it were me these days, I'd stay company driver just because the owner operators are, their margin of profit is getting so slim, and partially because of the rates aren't where they should be, and partially because the equipment is so maintenance heavy. So that'd be the route I think I'd stick with for now. Just being honest.
We got owner operators in the chat though.
Yes, but most of those owner operators are guys like SoCal Sandman that are like long-term owner operators. So, and that's a whole different ball game because you've got your truck paid for or partly paid for. You've got an older truck like SoCal does where the maintenance isn't off the hook. He's got a pre-emission engine or virtually pre-emission engine, so it's a whole new ball game as to running a brand new 2021 or 22 truck. A whole different ball game.
Crimson, thank you very much for the $5 donation, by the way. If you end up sending another message in for your donation, we'll be sure to read it. Thank you very much for the 5 beans. And Darren Long with the 5 beans as well. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. It's been very helpful for many of us. Thank you both for the $5 donations.
Yes, thank you. And Darren, thank you for saying so. Appreciate it. Brendan says the truck I have in mind is a 2007 W900. Brennan, I'd love to know what's under the hood of that truck, and I'll tell you what kind of success they had with the motor that's in there. But like a nice truck, but let's have a look at the engine and the drivetrain. Skinny G says the automatic restriction depends on the school. I made sure 2 years ago that I went to a school that only had manuals, so I wouldn't have a restriction. Yeah, that's good point. Good point.
All right, Crimson, I see your question now. How do you feel about delivering to shopping malls like Target or Costco, and do you think trucks should only deliver to their distribution centers due to space at their stores?
Huh, that's a really good question. And yes, frankly, I think trucks coming from out of state should only deliver to their distribution centers. Now, having said that, a lot of those big stores in shopping malls are set up fairly well for receiving truck traffic. But the problem is 9 times out of 10, you've got to get through the parking lot of cars to get to the truck area where the docks are. Like, you've got to get back around behind these malls to the docks. And I don't think, I don't think that's fair to expect a truck driver, unless he's in a day cab and he does it every day and he's got his time picked out and he's in there in the morning before the store opens, for instance. That would be okay. But that's a hell of a thing to ask a truck driver to do, is to maneuver through a mall parking lot with four-wheelers that are just completely unpredictable. And you have no idea when they're going to pull out and when they're not, and they're not looking for you. And that's a real hazard driving through those stupid malls. So overall, I'd say take it to a distribution center and let whoever it is, like Target or whoever, make it their problem to get their stuff from the distribution center. Use their own trucks with their own insurance or something like that. It's not fair for a guy out of state, I don't think, anyway. Oh, here's Tim Field. Our max gross weight is 96,000 pounds on non-interstate. We need that specialized chassis, though, because it's about 10 grand over the limit for a 20-footer. And so you're good, but you've got to stay off the interstate, kind of like Wyoming. Wyoming's like that as well, in Nebraska. Huh. Interesting. Thanks, Tim. That's new stuff for me. Appreciate it.
Steve Curtis with the $3 donation. Thank you very much for that, Steve. Hope you're enjoying the stream this afternoon thus far.
Huh. Captain Nice Guy says, I've never had a problem docking at a Walmart or a Sam's Club at a store at D.C. Can't speak for any other store, but Walmart's great about providing room for trucks. I'd have to say that any of the Walmarts I've ever looked at seem pretty well set up for trucks. But as I say, some of them, I imagine they have to cut through the car parking lots. That's where I'd have the issue. You're all right once you get back behind the store, but it's getting to the back of the store that can be an issue. And a lot of those laneways are just one way. And if you're new to the store and you go in the wrong way, meet a guy coming out, that'll be annoying. Jimmy Alvarez, any tips for new drivers? Stick around, Jimmy. I've got a ton of them. But I guess my biggest tip is move slowly, carefully, think through everything before you do it. Be sure. Check everything 3 times. You can't ever be too careful in trucking. Peter says, I drive for USPS now. We get all kind of places with different trailers, 28 to 53. And I'd be curious, Peter, to know if they're pretty good at not putting you into a place with a 53 that it shouldn't be. Surely to God, the United States Postal Service has mapped out by now where they cannot go with big trailers. I would hope, anyway. I would think they're that organized. Daniel Meredith. Get the new guy out ASAP to make money off them and trick the new guys on becoming a lease owner operator. Daniel, that's happening more and more, isn't it? That practice really upsets me. This putting brand new guys out of CDL school into lease operator trucks. I think that's a scam. I think that ought to be illegal. So many of those guys get taken and lose everything. That's not right. Dave, have you ever had a fuel line leak after putting on new fuel injectors in the old mechanical engines. Yes. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be an old engine. Cummins is having a problem with that right now on their new trucks on the fuel rail. So yes, it can happen, and that's a true problem. If you're spraying diesel fuel onto a hot engine underneath the hood and you don't know what's going on, you can have yourself a pretty good fire. So yes, that does happen. You've got to be careful. You've got to run the engine and check it. You've got to get out, pull the hood, keep an eye on it when the pressure's up, just to make sure everything's copacetic. You don't want that. Fred Besmer says he'd rather be driving through a mall right now than the Chicago traffic. Yeah, I hear you, Fred. I hear you. Timothy Bowers, any thoughts on Volvo versus Peterbilt? Timothy, the Volvos are getting better and better and better. And from what I've been hearing of the Pete guys lately, the brand new Petes, the quality's dropping. The quality control is dropping. There's more plastic. It's getting to be a tough call. If you're not buying a 389, if you have a 389, if you're buying a new 389, you'll have resale on your side. Other than that, there's becoming less and less of an advantage to pay more money for the Pete than you do for the Volvo. So there's my answer on that.
Captain coming in with another 20. Thank you for the generosity today, my friend. Planning on doing a video with the upcoming GP Transco visit.
Yes, we certainly are. We're looking forward to it. We can't say too much until we've got it in the bag, but yes, we are. The long and the short of it is yes, says Kathy. Fred says, new drivers plus lease operators equals slave labor. Yeah, it's a dirty trap that all sorts of guys get into down there. I hate to see it happen. I've talked to the occasional guy that it's all worked out rosy for him in the end, but you never do see the numbers. You never do see what he's actually ended up paying for the truck. When the lease is all done, he's paid it out. He's probably paid $200,000 for a $120,000 truck, but at least they get out of it and they haven't gone insolvent. But that rarely seems to happen. SoCal says he uses Lucas fuel additive religiously to protect his injectors, and I did that too, and that's a good practice because it is expensive to have to swap out injectors, and my truck's got over 1 million miles on it, and I use that Lucas stuff, and I've still got the original injectors in my truck, which amazes Cat, but they've been well treated. Cat recommended I do them at 800,000. I had them look at them at 800,000, and they said, no, you're good. They changed the injector cups, but they left the injectors alone and said, no, you're good for a while yet, and let me keep on going. Daniel says, mega carriers do these lease programs, and if a driver can't pay, they take the truck away, and the driver is stuck with a lot of money, or even worse, they will lease the same truck to someone else. That's exactly what happens. And a lot of the time, these mega carriers will lease the same truck 3 or 4 times to 3 or 4 different individuals. As one goes broke, they'll just lease the same truck to the next guy. The carrier makes a fortune off a deal like this. And these poor drivers have paid for all the maintenance costs and the fuel and everything. The carrier, it's just a win-win for the carrier, and it's a lose-lose for the driver. Who is that? 9412V Cummins. I put new injectors in my Cummins. I drove home. When I got home, cylinder 3 and 4 were leaking diesel. Good thing nothing caught fire. Scary though, huh? It's you're smart to have checked them.
Kyle, thank you very much for the $10 donation. I wish people could do more basic stuff to their own trucks. Then these new guys wouldn't be buying brand new trucks and putting them into the shop for everything. Buy older and save more money.
Kyle, I agree with you, and I wish they were that way still. The same. We could all work on our trucks back then. Saved us a ton of money. These new trucks, you need to be able to plug them into a computer to talk to them. And God, the computers start at like $12,000 to plug it in. Even a simple laptop setup is over $6,500, and it's just not the same anymore. And I understand that the engine manufacturers have done this to optimize the fuel mileage, but it is one of the practices that has hurt the small guy owning his own truck. And it's nice to see these guys out of PA and stuff that are still running the old trucks with the mechanical engines so they can work on them on the weekends. Good point.
Kelly, thank you very much for the 5. Good to see you in the chat this afternoon. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Kelly. What else we got here? Yeah, Tim Field says it's the key to maintenance. Maintenance is key. Absolutely. And if you're looking after your own truck, you know that it's been done properly because you don't miss any grease fittings or anything like that. Not like some of the shops would. But if you've got, that's why I was asking SoCal earlier, if he had his own like preferred mechanic, because I always have. And that's always been a big thing for me. I don't let just anybody work on the truck. I want somebody that I know knows what they're doing. And I also like, this is going to sound stupid, and a lot of shops don't let you watch or stand there while they work on the truck anymore. I insist on that. I won't go to a shop where I can't be with the truck and watch everything that goes on. But they'll quote you insurance regulations or something like that, and I'll say, well, you know what? I think I'll just take it somewhere else where I can see what's happening to my investment. Johnny Silvius, hi, is the 15-speed manual transmission still made? Yes, I believe you can still order it. And I had a number of those, and they're bulletproof transmissions. But yes, I believe you can still order the 15-speed. And I really like them, frankly. Oh, so there's something else I wanted to tell SoCal Sandman. So I tried to order the Adams polish I wanted, and the store, I was all excited because they had Adams products in town here. The store that is in town here doesn't have what I want, and the nearest store that has it is 60 miles away. But Kathy and I often take little road trips, so I'm hoping to get over to Bracebridge where it is. I'm hoping to get over there within the next week or so. I want the tire shine stuff, the tire polish. That's what I'm after. I'll try that first. Scranton Shaker says, I'm from PA trying to build a 379 extended hood with a 3406E. Man, you're in the right part of the country to be able to do that too, because there should be all sorts of trucks available for parts or whatever you need. That's a pretty common configuration. There's all sorts of trucking out of PA. There's all sorts of truck shops that are good truck shops in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure you'll get her done, and I'm sure she'll be a beaut when you get it on the road. The Cat Trucker, 15 speeds and I don't get along because I'm so used to the 13s and the 18s, and the patterns throw me off. I can understand that. And even the 15s, they used to come in different patterns. You could have overdrive up against the wall, or you could have overdrive in the standard H pattern. I don't think they make the overdrive up against the dash pattern anymore. I think it's all the H pattern still. But yeah, they even the 15 had different shift patterns for where overdrive was. SoCal says tire shine rules. Yep, I want to try that. So that's what I'm after, but I got to go out of town to get it. Wouldn't you just know it? That's all right. When you're a truck driver, it's not a big deal to drive 60 miles to pick something up. What else is going on here? Oh, let me get to this thing here about the autonomous trucks that I was talking about earlier. This is quite the deal, and I've been saying for a while that autonomous trucks weren't going to replace us truck drivers in our lifetime. So here's an article, and it's quoting Sean Kerrigan, who is the chief operating operator of Plus, which is a big manufacturer of autonomous trucks. And he's saying to do so as a real product, he means the autonomous truck, to make an autonomous truck, you've got to be able to prove that it's safer than a human driver, and human drivers for trucks are actually quite safe. That's a quote. He goes on to say that in the U.S., there is a fatal accident involving a large truck about every 62 million miles based on data from the FMCSA. For me, that means that autonomous trucks would need to log hundreds of millions of miles to demonstrate they are substantially safer than human drivers, proving it statistically would require billions of miles. And he's talking about completely autonomous trucks. And he goes on to say that as the autonomous trucks come into being, that they're going to need these, what they called safety drivers, truck drivers in the cab of the truck at all the time. They're going to need those for years and years to come. And there's something else as a truck driver we have to look at, because you want to look at how that truck driver that's not driving, and this is going to get to be a thing in the years to come, how he's paid and what his liabilities truly are. Because they expect the safety driver to jump in when the truck screws up, basically, or doesn't know what to do, or gets confused. And I'm saying, if you're going to do that, if you're a licensed truck driver, that should pay big money, and there's a question about liability there. Because if he's not in the seat holding the wheel when the situation occurs in front of him that the autonomous truck can't handle, then I say that alleviates him of any liability. So that's going to be a thing in the future. But it's interesting to see, that here's a guy that's making these things say that it's going to take years and years and years and billions of miles to develop this technology. It's not anywhere near yet. And it's also interesting to note that investors lately have been dropping away from these autonomous truck companies, and the top execs at Waymo, which is the number one manufacturer of autonomous trucks, have been leaving. The top 3 guys have left recently. And it's those big wheels don't leave jobs unless they see the ship starting to sink. So and the investment dollars are pulling out and going the other way. So the investment guys, the autonomous companies rely on, are getting tired of waiting, and they're moving their money elsewhere. And that's going to slow the autonomous trucks down even more. And it may be that we never see them at all. Which kind of warms my heart when I read stuff like that. Yeah, Wombat says they're going to have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for suckers to be safety drivers. Well, you know what? I hope that's not the case. I hope they take a guy with a ton of driving experience and say, well, here's $100,000 to babysit this truck. We'll respect the hours of service, and you're under no liability at all. Just stay with it. If it doesn't pay big money for the level of experience that this driver has already, I'd walk away. Why help the competition take your job? Make it worth your while financially, or walk away. And these guys will be struggling. So interesting to see anyway. Brought a smile to my face. But, and my wife Kathy said this a number of years ago now, when she first found out about the autonomous trucks. Her first reaction was, who's going to want to insure something like that? And that stuck with me, and she's absolutely right. What insurance? You've got to have insurance to run the truck on the interstate. What insurance company is going to want to back something like that. Wouldn't be me if it was my insurance company. Fred Besmer, he says he sees lots of Waymo vehicles around Phoenix. Yeah, I think aren't they literally from out of Phoenix somewhere, Fred? I think so. And that's kind of the test ground for all these autonomous trucks is, like lower Arizona, Southern California, where everything's flat and dry and, there are a minimum of weather issues, that type of thing. So, yeah, there are a lot of them running around lower Arizona, Southern Arizona. But I wouldn't want to have one beside me and my family if we were in our car on the interstate. But so we, and the one guy was quoted, the one tech was quoted as, he said, well, we solved autopilot with jet airplanes. So the jet airplanes can operate on autopilot. So he said his attitude was, well, if we can do it with jets, we can certainly do it with trucks. And my attitude is, oh, no, because jets don't get into traffic like trucks do. And jets don't get into weather and slippery roads the way trucks do. So, yeah, apples and oranges comparison. Oh, he's sliding his bogies and his bogies hung up. I used to know a guy, we were just watching a video of a guy sliding his tandems on a trailer, and the trailer was empty, so the tandems were bouncing. And I used like silicone grease or something like that on my sliders, but I knew one old guy that used liquid dish soap, and he said it worked really well. And it was a lot cheaper than silicone spray or lithium grease or something like that. But yeah, you got to keep those sliders lubed up. I saw one guy one time. There were New Jersey barriers. You guys know what I mean by New Jersey barriers. Jersey barriers in the truck stop, like big concrete abutments. When you backed up, so you'd hit one of those and quit backing up. He was trying to slide his tandems and they were stuck. And this was back before the ICC bars were really, really low. And he nailed this Jersey barrier with the back of his tandems, trying to force them to slide forwards. And the whole tandem setup buckled the wooden floor of this trailer, punched right up through the floor of the trailer, ruined the trailer. It was something else. Guy destroyed a dry box just like that right there, and the cargo inside. Don works great on sliders. He's talking about soap. This is Fred. Works great on sliders and fifth wheels. Never even thought of the fifth wheel. Good point. I would love to see you and Mark from Trucking Answers do a joint video on autonomous trucks. Mike, it's interesting you should say that. We've been talking to Mark about doing something just exactly like that. It's in the works. But yeah, Mark's a good guy. I like chatting with him. He's knowledgeable too. Oh, Kathy brought me. She's got her own slider stuff here, just in case we need it. She got
used for the cats for fleas.
she says that's what we use to protect the cats from fleas. To kill the fleas. I guess we can also use it on sliders and fifth wheels. See, we're prepared here at Smart Trucking. Always a bottle of Dawn on hand in case we need it. Yeah, for fleas and bogies, as Kathy says. Daniel's taking off here. Good luck to all you guys. Have a safe and great weekend and Memorial Day. Thanks to you men and women who served and allow us to be truck drivers and spend time with their family. See you on the next show. Daniel, take care. Thanks for dropping in, man. Good talking with you. Music Man says hello. He's just getting here. Hello, Music Man. Wolfman 1662 says the cat trucker don't have most large commercial aircraft have an auto land feature. You're asking the wrong guy. I don't have a commercial pilot's license. I don't know if the autopilot will land the plane or not. I want to say yes, but I'm not sure. And I don't know whether, at what point the pilot has to take over if the runway's greasy, or if, the control tower screws up on the traffic pattern or something like that. I know nothing about it. Josh says, how many years left for the 389? Josh, Peterbilt initially said they were going to get rid of that in 2023, I think it was. And now they've changed their story. Now they're saying, no, they're going to keep it on for a while yet. They're, virtually indefinitely, because it's one of their top selling models. And as much as they think they should phase it out for a more aerodynamic truck, there's too many diehard guys that want the 389. So they've backed off on that. They're going to keep the 389 for a while. Captain Nice Guy, my old partner, when he was in training, actually dropped the trailer when sliding the tandems, literally slid the tandems off. He told me that I gave him guff for that for months. I guess I would too. Slid the tandems out from underneath the trailer. That'd be tough to fix in a truck stop parking lot. You'd need a crane and God knows what else. Wow.
Grilled Mortal says, one night a lumber hauler tried to fix his load on the wall of the Perry Sound Sobeys. What a mess.
Oh, no, to try to straighten it up.
What a mess. Wall and other things inside destroyed.
Is that right? How long ago was that? I didn't know about that. That happens, though. Flatbed guys with high stacks of lumber, the stuff will start to lean. And they either need a fork truck, a big heavy fork truck, to straighten it out. But I've seen guys snuggle up to like flat hard wall surfaces and literally push the load straight again, and then torque on it and strap it down harder. And I've seen that work, but I haven't ever seen anybody collapse the side of a Sobeys. Damn, I wish I'd been there for that. Wow, what a mess that would be. I'd love to know, did the lumber hauler probably just took off and they probably never caught him, but holy smokes. Wolfman, Captain Nice Guy, that's why I always check to make sure that the jaws are closed despite hearing that click and doing the tug test. The one time I didn't was the first and only time, almost lost a trailer. Yeah, you got to get underneath there and check them, because you can hear a click and it can be just one jaw closing, and that's not enough. You got to get underneath there and look and use a flashlight, because sometimes those jaws can be hard to see, and give it the tug test too. But yeah, fifth wheels don't, it's incredible the amount of abuse a fifth wheel takes, and yet they rarely screw up, but every once in a while they do. And they wear out too. And we'll be doing a video here on fifth wheels shortly, but one of the things you've got to watch is that hole when your jaws are closed isn't starting to get oblong. It's still perfectly round for a nice tight fit for the kingpin. When you see it starting to go oblong and out of shape, it's time for a kit to rebuild that fifth wheel. But they last for years and years and years. They're an incredible piece of equipment considering the abuse. Oh, Grilled Mortal says he's got pictures of that flatbed guy in the Sobeys from about 10 years ago. Man, I would pay big money to see that. Holy cow. I would pay big money to see that. Tim Field says, I do that with the container. I rub against other containers if the locking pins aren't lined up. Well, that's pretty neat. Yeah, and I bet you I've never pulled a container, like a flatbed on a container, but I imagine those pins just don't always line up perfectly. That's interesting. Because, those containers, I'm sure those things take a hell of a beating when they're getting loaded and unloading and stuff. And I bet you sometimes the pins are a bit of a pain to line up and lock in. I'd like to have seen that mess that Captain Nice Guy's partner did there with the trailer bogies. Yeah. 9412 V Cummins. Dave, kind of dumb question, but have you ever seen a rookie driver try to start a truck in gear? All sorts of times. And it's just part of the learning process. And as they get more experience, they learn that A, they got to have the clutch shoved in, and B, to rattle that stick around to make sure it's in neutral. But yeah, I've seen guys that do that because they get in a rush and they know people are watching and they get nervous and stuff. It just happens. It's all part of the learning process. What's bad is when the truck catches and jumps ahead and hits something in front of it. That happens too. For new drivers, just a heads up, GP Transco requires 1 year of experience. So get your experience with Swift and then ditch them. Crimson G. Good advice. Good advice from Crimson G. Thank you, sir. David Edwards, where is GP Transco located? Joliet, Illinois, and they hire from every state, all of the 48 states. They're not up here in Canada. We're just getting a treat. They're sending us this truck special, so I'm pretty excited about that. Okay. David Edwards says he prefers the W900L. They're a nice truck too, and we alternated, Kathy and I, we alternated between the W9s and the 379 Pete's. We've had both. They were both nice trucks, and there were advantages and disadvantages to both. The newer W9s, when they started sloping the hood down, I didn't like that so much. And that's when I started switching to the 379. I preferred the flat hood. They sloped the nose at Kenworth in an attempt to get fuel mileage out of them. And the Studio Sleeper is by far the nicest bunk on the market. So, yeah, they're both nice trucks. But, yeah, the 900's a great truck. Don't like the 990 near so much. Well, I guess we should wrap it up. Hope you guys join us for Friday's video, which is about the five different things that carriers will make you do that truly aren't safe, even though they preach safety all the time. So that's what that's about. I encourage you to have a look and contemplate buying the trucker stories that we have out. It's pinned at the top of the feed, the stream there. Always a good lesson, a good listen, I should say. Good for 4 or 5 hours worth of entertainment and old time stories. But other than that, everybody, I want you to stay safe. For you guys down in the States, enjoy the long weekend. Enjoy the long weekend. Make the most of it. Pardon me? Be safe. Take care. Keep the rubber side down. And we'll see you on the backhaul. Thanks for joining us, everybody.